I'm your tour guide at this signpost at this stops in the road. And so let's walk through it together. Who remembers what we did 2 weeks ago, the first time this series started? It's the big C, right? Creation. Judy walked us through that. The thing that I remember from that is that we were made to be in relationship with God. That was the point of it all, right? The second time, Lee picked up with chapter 3, the other big C, corruption, right? The fall. Sin and evil enter the world. And as we were reading, we came across one of my favorite passages in the readings that we did this past week. And that's where Adam and Eve sin, right? And what do immediately? They hear God walking in the garden, and they're ashamed of it. And they go and hide in the bushes. And what does God do? He seeks them out. One of my favorite words, he goes, "Where are you?" Did God know where they were? What did he need them to know in that moment? That though you be dead in your trespasses, I still want to be in relationship with you. Oh, man. And then that brings us to another C. That's today's passage. And that is what? Anybody know? Catastrophe. Okay? Catastrophe. I'm your tour guide. I'm going to require something of you. You ready? I'm going to get you to open your Bible. If you did not bring your textbook to class, don't worry. There's some in the back of the seat in front of you. And I'm a generous tour guide. I'll allow your phones out so you can have your Bible. Anybody know what a Bible is? Phone Bible, Bible. Those are allowable in this moment. So either your hard copy or the copy that's in the back of the seat in front of you or your Bible, any of those. Where we're going to be today is in Genesis. Well, we're going to be a lot of places, to be honest with you. But we're going to start and spend the majority of our time in Genesis, what chapter? There you go. Have you found it? Now then, as a side note, real quick, Genesis chapter 5, right before it, it seems kind of like a snooze fest at first when you look at it. It's the genealogy of Noah, from Adam to Noah. Do you know what's a really cool thing that I learned as I was studying for this? So it walks out. Adam was this old. God created him. He lived to be this long. At this age, he had a son named Seth, right? He lived to be this long. He had a son named, he had lived to be this long. If you just stack those up together and look at them, don't take my word for it. Take a look at it. See if you can do it. Get a piece of graph paper out, like in high school math. Graph that out. There's a moment in time where every person of that family line is alive together. From Adam all the way to Noah's dad, who was named Lamech, right? There's about a 50-year time period where Lamech, Noah's dad, had a possibility of hearing firsthand knowledge from Adam as to what happened in those things that we read earlier. Isn't that mind-blowing? Did y'all realize that? You're welcome. Go back and look at it. It's amazing. It's amazing. All right, let's get back to it. We're gonna pick up in Genesis chapter 6, and we're gonna start in verse 5. One day, I hope to share a campfire with you so we can talk about the first 4 verses of this chapter. It would be a long, beautiful night full of hot dogs and s'mores and talking about these first 4 chapters. But let's just sum it up. There's stuff going on there that is outside of what God intended. Okay? There's things there that God said, that ain't right. I don't like that. And we pick up in verse 5. Then Yahweh saw that the evil of man was great on the earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was what? Only evil continually. Let's start at the first part of that verse. Then God saw. We do not serve a God who's far off and distant, who's disinterested in his creation. but it's close. He's near. He's interested in his creation. In Genesis chapter 1, we see God spoke things into existence. And then what happened? God saw and he said, it's good. 6 times he says that. He speaks all the things into creation. He saw it and he said, it's good. And then the 7th time he said what? It's very good. And he keeps on seeing. And right here we see Yahweh saw. He's interested in his creation. Okay? It goes on to say that the evil of man was great on the earth. That word there, evil, that's the same original language, Hebrew, right? This was written in Hebrew first, right? That's the same word as back earlier where it said the tree of the knowledge of good and, that word's ra, or ra. Okay? And so it's one thing for God to say, I see your actions. It's another thing that it goes on in that verse to say, I know the intent of your heart. I know that unspoken thing, right? And when at the end of the verse where it says only evil continually, you take any 1 or 2 of those words and it's bad. But you put all 3 of those together, it was only evil. It was only evil continually. We're talking about a level of corruption that it's kind of hard for you to wrap your mind around. It is me anyway. It was only evil continually. And that's what he saw. Next verse. This is hard. You ready? And Yahweh regretted that he had made man on the earth, and he was grieved. This is a way of speaking in the Bible that presents to our finite mind and our limited capacity, the English language, the Hebrew language, the Greek language, they're all beautiful and wonderful, but they fail to really illustrate the full capacity of God. I don't have the possibility in my mind, no matter what I read, to understand and appreciate this, but this scratches the surface. As deep and hard as that is to hear, that just scratches the surface as to what God's disposition is toward the evil and sin that he sees in his creation. He regretted, that word in the original is nachem. Nachem. When I'm looking into the meaning of that word, it also can mean comfort or relief, depending on its context. And I found this interesting. It also can mean this. You ready? That big, deep sigh. You ever been there? And Yahweh at what he saw. Okay, next verse. This one's even harder. And Yahweh said, I will blot out man, whom I have created from the face of the land, from man to animal, to creeping things, to the birds of the sky, for I have made them. You ever spilled something on your shirt? Go to blot it out? Did you intend on leaving any of it behind? Or did you want to remove it all? You want some of that grape jelly left on your jacket? Your intent was to, some translations say, erase it, right? He was in the intent of erasing it. Another bit of language here. Does he say man only? Did one of the things that Lee talked about last week in the sermon, did that sin and that evil corrupt only man, or was it all creation? That corrupted all the creation. God is not God and sovereign alone over me and you, but all of creation. He speaks here, I'm going to blot him out, man, and then what? Animals and creeping things and birds of the sky. This speaks of the language of the very first chapter of Genesis, where he's talking about what he created. He gathered the waters, he made the land, plants, birds of the sky, beasts, creeping things, and the man is all very, very good, right? This is almost running that back. I'm going to take all that and blot it out. I'm going to erase it. The next verse is so good. We get bad after bad after bad, and then we get so good. What does it say? But Noah found favor in the eyes of Yahweh. He found favor in the eyes of God. That word for favor right there, anybody reading out of a King James? New King James? Maybe at the overflow service, maybe in here. That word, it's grace. It's grace. He found grace. Now, is the grace that God extends to me and to you because we deserve it? Or is it because that he wills for it to be? Noah was a pretty good guy, but he found grace extended by God. God's grace extended to Noah in that moment. This is one of those but God moments in Scripture where you see awful, 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 but God intended it for good. Awful, 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 awful. But God found grace and granted it to Noah. All right? I'm going to go slightly out of my required reading for the day, and we're going to go on to the next verse. Okay? I'm a bit of a rebel. It says, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among those in his generation. What does it say now? Noah walked with God. That original word right there for walked with God. Doesn't that sound good? It sounds good at first, but it gets even better. That word is halak. Sometimes it's nice when you see these words and you go back and you study, where does that word first happen in the Bible? To give you some context. That word happens back in Genesis 2, where it's describing how the Tigris River went from one area to the other. The Tigris River, halak. There it says flowed, right? Here it says walked. Isn't it a beautiful image that Noah flowed with God, right? Just like the Tigris. Where does the water in the river go? Precisely where the river tells it to go. Does it ever go upstream? Anybody ever saw that moment? When the river bend goes left, where does the water go? It goes left. Noah flowed with God, all right? That's a beautiful image. Let's skip a little bit here and pick up, and we're going to come back to it, but let's pick up in the 17th verse. You ready? As for me, let's pause right there. The part we skipped, God says, build a really big boat. All right? And then he comes in here, but as for me, here's what I'm going to do. 17th verse, as for me, behold, I am bringing the flood of water upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life. From under heaven, everything that is on the earth shall breathe its last. Does that sound localized? He kind of triples down on it, doesn't he? He says, everything that has breath of life, everything that's under heaven, I say again, everything that has breath of life will be to an end. I'm blotting it out, right? The next verse, here's one of those but God moments. That sounds really bad, but the next verse, verse 18. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall enter the ark. You, your sons, your wife, your sons' wives with you. Happy Father's Day, Noah. I'm going to blot it all out, build a really big boat, but guess what? I'm saving you and your family. Any of you fathers, can you see that moment just in your mind? Picture that for a moment. I'm taking it all away. I found favor with you, but I'm going to extend it to your family. I'm making a covenant with you and your family. You're going to do this together. That's a beautiful thing. Happy Father's Day, Noah. And verse 19. And of every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every kind into the ark to keep them alive with you. They should be male and female. Remember I said earlier, God's not only sovereign over me and you, but all of creation. And now he's saving Noah. And guess what? That saving is now extending to the creation. And God knows what he's doing. He said, I'm going to bring 2 of them, male and female. Let's go on to the next verse. Here again, we're going to see a little bit of language that's similar to the creation story. You ready? Verse 20. Of the birds after their kind, and of the animals after their kind, of every creeping thing that is on the ground after its kind, 2 of every kind will come to you to keep them alive. I'm saving not only you and your family, I'm saving the animals as well. Okay? Now then, what's interesting here, I'm taking off dentist hat. I'm going to put it over here. I'm picking up cellular biology at the University of Georgia, go Dogs, and put that hat on. You ready? So you may not know I've got a degree in cellular biology. That was what I was doing before I was a dentist. Let me unpack these couple of verses for you in a way that you might be able to understand, okay? That word in the Hebrew right there, it's important, kind. You see that mentioned several times, kind. In the Hebrew, it's min. And here's a way for you to understand that. That kind, remember in biology class, the whole classification of animals and plants and everything? Kingdom, phylum, class, order, genus, species, all that stuff. That word men, and where he says right here, kind, that's way up at the family level. Okay? I'm going to bring 2 of every family member of the birds, of the creeping things, of the animals to you. Okay? Here's a way to understand that. Noah didn't need my German short hair pointer and Pastor Lee's boxer and Derek's schnauzer. He didn't need those. What did he need? He needed an ancestral dog like a wolf. Okay? A pair of wolves. Big grown pair or little bitty cub pair? Which one do you want to deal with on an ark for a year? Little cub pair? Okay? They have within them, God's design is beautiful. They have within them, in their genes, the capacity to create all the dogs that you and I know and love today. All right? Just like Noah, his sons, their wives, had the genetic capacity to create all the people groups that you and me and everybody knows and loves today. Within them, there's this capacity for variation. And God says, I'm going to save them. I'm going to save them all so that when they get together for the next few thousand years and do their thing, I'm going to recreate all of it. Okay? That recreate after what? They're kind. Let me say this as gently as I can. And I'll see if you can pick up what I'm laying down. Those dog kinds are going to create dogs. Okay? Those humans, what are they going to create? Humans. The ape family is going to create what? In all of recorded history, you will never find anything that deviates from that. I'm going to let you process that for a minute. Remember, I'm wearing the cellular biology hat, Dr. Lee, today. Okay? I'm going to let you process that. An ape will only give rise to an ape. I need my young people to listen to me. An ape will only ever give rise to an ape. And never a man. Do you pick up what I'm laying down? That will never happen. Not once in human history ever has it ever been found. Nor shall it ever be. That would be a deviation from God's design. And he says right here, I'm taking all these kinds that they'll reproduce and recreate it all. He didn't say one or a couple, and then they're going to morph into everything. That's not the way the cells, your DNA, my DNA, their DNA, that's not the way that works. Not ever. All right, let's move on. All right. One more side note. How did Noah know which ones to go get? Read carefully. Read carefully. At the end of that 20th verse right there, what it says, 2 of every kind will what? Come to you. This is still part of that earlier where he says, as for me, here's what I'm going to do. I'm bringing the flood. I'm going to establish my covenant with you. I'm going to save you. I'm going to bring the examples of my creation to you that need to be spared and saved to carry on. I'm doing these things. And now the next verse is a little bit of what Noah had to do in addition to building the boat, okay? As for you, take for yourself some of all food which is edible and gather it to yourself, and it shall be for food for you and for them. It's enough to build that boat. Have you ever seen it? Up in Kentucky, there's a thing called the Ark Encounter, and a sister project nearby called what's called the Creation Museum. You ever seen it? It looks and they recreated it accurately according to what God's Word says. It looks like a container ship. It's amazing. Now imagine a huge chunk of that ship being reserved for food, and he says, "Now, David, I want you to go get all the food that you and all them animals are going to need for a year after you've built the boat. And I'm going to need you to store it up." Anybody, does that sound like work? As for you, I got a job for you. Here's it is. What God calls you to is not going to be in the air conditioning, and it may not be easy. What God calls you to may require something of you. I'm requiring something of you this morning. What God calls you to is going to require something of you, and it probably ain't relaxing. It's probably getting up and getting after it. Okay? As for you, here's what I'm calling you to. Now go get after it. Okay? It's going to require something to you. Verse 22. Thus Noah did, according to all that God had commanded him, so he did. What did he do with God? The river went left and right, and he went left and right in that order. Everything that he told him to do, he did. Does this bear any weight for us today or in the other part of the story of the New Testament? Is there any corollaries that we can draw there? Anything that we can see? Well, yes, there is. I'm glad you asked. All right? Noah, before we started, he said God saw, and then what did he see? He saw things were bad. Things were outside of his design. Turn to Romans chapter 3. You're going to get over in the far right-hand portion of your book, past Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, past Acts. Acts ends with them in Rome, and that picks up Romans. Okay? So Romans chapter 3. Let's see if this sounds similar to what God saw in Genesis. Okay? Romans chapter 3, go down to verse 9. We'll start right there. What then? Are we better? Is today any better? No. Not at all. For we have already charged that both Jews and Greeks are all under sin. As it is written, here he goes back to Psalm 14 and quotes a little bit of Psalm 14. There is none righteous, not even one. There is none who understands, none that seeks for God. All have turned aside, together they have become worthless. There is none who does good, there is not even one. Their throat is an open tomb. With their tongues they keep deceiving. The poison of asp is under their lips, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Destruction and misery are in their path. The path of peace they have not known. This next one. You ready? There is no fear of God before their eyes. There's no reverence. There's no fear of God before their eyes. Does that sound a little bit like what he may have seen? But here it is in the Psalms, and then here it is again in Romans. Do we still have a sin problem? Yeah. That may become clear to you at Costco on Saturday afternoon. Right? I'm not alone. I know I can't be. That may become clear to you at high school on a Tuesday morning. You may be reminded of that. Okay? We still have this problem. So did Jesus ever have anything to say about Noah? Why, yes, he did. Let's turn back to Matthew 24. Let's go to the left a few books. Matthew 24. Okay, we're going to be near the end of it. Matthew 24. We're going to go down to verse 36. Let's begin right there. Okay, Matthew, the 24th chapter, and verse 36 near the end. Now, this is Jesus talking. This is the Son of Man talking about the coming of the Son of Man. The next one. Okay? It's right there. But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels in heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. Pause right there. That needs a little bit of unpacking that we don't have time for today. But go pray over that and seek that out. No one knows that hour but the Father. Okay? Remember, who's the bride? The church. Who's the groom? Jesus. And in that culture, who called for the wedding to happen? The Father did. That's a little snippet for that audience. No one knows that hour, but only the Father. Let's carry on. All right. For just in the days of Noah, as the days of Noah were, so the coming of the Son of Man will be. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day Noah entered the ark. And they did not understand until the flood came and they all were taken away. So will be with the coming of the Son of Man. God saw in Genesis chapter 6 that things weren't right. He promised a judgment that was to come. Right? Jesus sees things aren't right. And he's warning you and me, just like Noah warned the people around him. There's a judgment to come for all this. And you're not going to see it coming. Just like Noah in his day, they were carrying on with everything they were doing until what came? Until suddenly it was too late. That's going to be the way it is in your life, in my life, in everybody's life. There's a reckoning for that which we entertain in our lives, both good and bad. Okay? So we see there's still a sin problem. We still see there's a judgment to come. This is going to be good. Let's go back to that part in Genesis chapter 6 that we skipped. Okay? I know I'm turning a lot, but this is going to be good. This is that but God moment. Genesis chapter 6. Maybe you saved it and you didn't get a turn to it like I did. All right, Genesis 6. Let's go down to the 14th verse, Genesis 6:14. All right? Make for yourself an ark of gopher wood. You shall make the ark with rooms, and you shall cover it where? Inside and out with what? Pitch. What is that? There's one thing you want a boat to be, and that's waterproof. Okay? I need all of that out there and not in here. Okay? Now, what was that in realistic terms? Did a man who built the ark have access to a lot of tree resin? Yeah, he had access to a lot of it. Okay? Now, that pitch is that tree resin boiled in those times, and they would add fibrous things like wood powder and coal and, those things, turn it black and sticky. And while it was hot, even though Noah's handiwork, I'm sure, was impeccable. Tight seams, okay? Tight seams, but it's not watertight yet. So it's going to sink if he doesn't do something. He's going to cover it with pitch. So Noah boils that resin and that fibrous material, and he paints that on there, and when it dries, now it's waterproof. The exact thing you want that boat to be, so that none of that water gets in. All right? So that word right there, to cover, guess what that means? That's the same word in Hebrew for what? Atonement. Okay? Propitiation. Who was the propitiation and atonement? Jesus. Here we see Noah in a boat made of wood, covered with something that's going to protect him from the judgment, from the flood. And then over here we see Jesus on a cross made of wood, covered in what? That which is what we need to accept to be protected from that judgment to come. Okay? That waterproofing, that thing that we must repent towards and believe in, that we might be saved. Isn't that beautiful? That's good. All right. Now then, what kind of guide or teacher would I be if I didn't give you homework? A good one. Yeah. But I'm not interested in being good. I'm interested in being very good. Okay. So here's your homework. And this is going to be cool. I hope some of you get it. I don't think it's in the required reading for the syllabus. Where's the syllabus? I don't have it. Anybody got that little bulletin? I don't think it's in the required reading for the syllabus. What did he build? Noah. He built an ark. Okay? In the original language there, that word for ark appears in another story in the Bible. And I know immediately you're thinking Ark of the Covenant. A-R-K, ark. That ain't it. That's a different word, okay? There's another story. If you got time and interest, I want you to find it. That word that he uses right there for ark is in one other story. And when you see it, you might find some similarities, overlaps, okay? I hope you find it. It's so good. I'm not going to tell it to you. I'm requiring something of you, okay? In addition to the required reading in the syllabus, there's this assignment that if you really want something good, find that word. If you want a resource for this, blueletterbible.com. Look it up. It'll give you all the Hebrew words. You click on it, scroll down to the bottom. It'll tell you everywhere in the Bible that word's used. Go find it, see what other story it is, see where the context is, see where that's used. Is there any similarities to Noah's Ark and him saving and God saving? Okay, let's go.